What happens when war films stop chasing spectacle and start chasing truth instead? In the 1950s, British cinema did something rare. It slowed down. It listened. It let real experience guide the camera. These films were not about glory. They were about pressure, patience, and people pushed to their limits. Halfway through this list, you will notice something strange. The older these films get, the harder they hit. And by the end, you might wonder why modern war movies stop trusting the audience this much. Number 14, They Who Dare, 1954. This film opens without ceremony, and that is exactly the point. They Who Dare does not build up its mission with speeches or dramatic flourishes. It drops you straight into the quiet tension of preparation. A small British unit is sent into hostile territory with limited support and no promise of return. The story is based on a real operation, and you can feel that authenticity in every restrained choice the film makes. Dirk Bogarde leads the group, but he does not play a loud hero. His performance is calm, watchful, and heavy with responsibility. The men under his command are not fearless. They are focused. The landscape becomes part of the pressure. Rocky ground, long marches, and the constant fear of being noticed do most of the storytelling. What makes this film stand out is its refusal to rush. It shows how long waiting can stretch, how silence becomes its own burden. The director lets moments breathe, trusting that the audience will feel the strain without being told how to feel. They Who Dare arrived at a time when similar films were common, but this one still stands because it feels honest. It understands that courage is quiet and that success is often measured in getting through one more hour. That realism is why it still holds up. Number 13, The Ship That Died of Shame, 1955. This is not a war film in the usual sense, and that is what makes it powerful. The Ship That Died of Shame is about what happens after the fighting ends. 3 former naval companions buy their old patrol boat and try to make a living in peacetime Britain. At first, their plans seem harmless, but small compromises begin to stack up. The boat itself becomes a symbol. It carried them through the war, and now it seems to resist what they are asking it to do. Breakdowns happen at the worst moments. Weather turns without warning. The men begin to argue, not like enemies, but like people who know each other too well. Richard Attenborough delivers one of his most intense performances here. His character slowly unravels, not through big scenes, but through looks, pauses, and impatience. The film suggests that some people never really leave wartime behind. They just carry it into new situations. What makes this story hit hard is its message without preaching. It shows that survival does not end when the uniforms come off. The emotional weight lingers. This film feels uncomfortable in the best way because it asks whether some bonds are meant to end and what happens when they do not. Number 12, The Bridge on the River Kwai, 1957. This is one of the most famous British war dramas ever made, but its power comes from its restraint. The story follows British prisoners forced to build a bridge under harsh conditions. Instead of focusing on escape attempts, the film centers on pride, discipline, and moral conflict. Alec Guinness delivers a layered performance as a commanding officer determined to maintain order and dignity at all costs. His belief in rules becomes both admirable and troubling. The bridge itself becomes a symbol of conflicting values. Is it a sign of resilience or a step too far? Director David Lean fills the film with sweeping visuals, but never lets them overpower the human drama. Long takes allow tension to simmer. Conversations carry more weight than action. The famous whistle tune adds an eerie sense of calm that clashes with the situation. What makes this film still hit hard is its complexity. It refuses easy answers. It shows how good intentions can drift into dangerous territory. Even decades later, the questions it raises about leadership and loyalty still feel uncomfortably relevant. Number 11, Reach for the Sky, 1956. Reach for the Sky tells the true story of a fighter pilot who refuses to be defined by loss. Kenneth More plays the lead with warmth, humor, and quiet determination. The film traces his early success, his sudden setback, and his long struggle to return to the skies. What separates this film from others is its tone. It never becomes sentimental. The challenges are shown plainly. Rehabilitation is slow. Progress is uncertain. The people around him offer support, but they cannot fight the battle for him. The flying scenes are exciting without being overwhelming, but the real heart of the film is in its quieter moments. Conversations over tea, private frustrations, and small victories carry the story forward. The film treats perseverance as something built day by day. Reach for the Sky became one of the biggest British films of its time, and it is easy to see why. It balances inspiration with honesty. It reminds you that strength does not always look dramatic. Sometimes it looks like getting up and trying again. Number 10. Sea of Sand, 1958. Sea of Sand drops you into the desert and refuses to let you out. This is not a sweeping epic. It is a tight, grinding survival story about a small patrol sent deep behind enemy lines. The heat is constant. The landscape never changes. And that is exactly the point. Richard Attenborough and John Gregson lead the group, and their performances feel lived in. These are not fresh recruits chasing adventure. They are tired professionals who understand the risks and go anyway. The desert becomes the real opponent. Vehicles break down, water runs low, tempers flare. What makes Sea of Sand so effective is how little it explains. The film trusts you to pick up on tension through body language and silence. Long stretches pass with almost no dialogue. You hear engines strain. You see faces crack under pressure. The production famously shot on real desert locations, and it shows. Nothing looks staged. The glare feels real. The exhaustion feels earned. By the time the mission reaches its turning point, the outcome almost feels secondary to the journey. Sea of Sand still hits hard because it understands something modern films often forget. Danger does not need noise. Sometimes it is just time, heat, and the knowledge that help is very far away. Number 9. The Colditz Story, 1955. The Colditz Story proves that tension does not need noise or spectacle. It needs rules, routine, and people quietly testing the limits of both. Set inside the forbidding walls of Colditz Castle, the film follows Allied officers held in what was designed to be an escape-proof prison. From the first moments, the story settles into a rhythm that feels deliberately repetitive because that is how captivity works. John Mills plays Pat Reed with calm authority. He is not a dramatic leader. He is observant, patient, and constantly thinking several steps ahead. Days blur together as guards patrol, prisoners study routines, exchange information, and look for tiny cracks in the system. The suspense comes from waiting for the right moment, waiting for a mistake, waiting for courage to outweigh caution. This story is rooted in reality. The real Pat Reed served as an advisor, and that authenticity shows in every detail. Escape attempts unfold slowly and carefully. Progress is measured in inches, not breakthroughs. Failure is common, and frustration is part of daily life. Director Guy Hamilton allows humor to slip in through small acts of defiance and clever cooperation. It never breaks the tension. Instead, it shows how morale survives under pressure. The Colditz Story still works because it treats intelligence, patience, and teamwork as action. Every quiet success feels earned. Number 8. The Purple Plane, 1954. The Purple Plane begins at an emotional endpoint rather than a starting line. Gregory Peck plays a pilot weighed down by loss and exhaustion, sent to Burma for what is meant to be one final assignment. From the beginning, the film makes it clear that the real struggle is internal, not external. The jungle setting feels heavy and unwelcoming, but the real tension lives behind Peck's eyes. His performance is restrained and controlled. He speaks little, yet every pause carries meaning. The flight sequences are tense and precise, but once the plane goes down, the film changes pace entirely. From there, the story becomes about survival, reflection, and quiet endurance. Movement slows. Silence becomes important. A monk offers guidance without speeches or grand lessons. The film allows stillness to do the work, trusting the audience to sit with discomfort rather than rushing toward resolution. What sets The Purple Plane apart is its confidence. It does not push toward easy conclusions. It allows pain to exist without decoration. Healing is uncertain. Progress is uneven. The Purple Plane still hits hard because it understands that returning home is not always the hardest part. Sometimes the hardest part is learning how to keep going when the noise fades and you're left alone with memory. Number 7. Above Us, The Waves, 1955. Above Us, The Waves is a film about persistence in the face of doubt. It follows naval officers attempting to turn an untested idea into something reliable, useful, and trusted. Their goal is not recognition, it is effectiveness. even if that means years of frustration. John Mills leads a cast that spends much of the film debating, testing, and failing. Early experiments go wrong, equipment breaks down, confidence dips. The film never hides this process. Progress is shown as slow, uncertain, and often discouraging. Training sequences are detailed and deliberate. The camera lingers on preparation rather than payoff. You see how trust forms between people who know that mistakes will not be forgiven by the sea. Patience becomes the most valuable skill. When success finally arrives, it does not come with celebration. It arrives with quiet relief. The film treats achievement as something earned through endurance rather than luck or inspiration. Above Us, the Waves still resonates because it respects effort. It shows how innovation often looks awkward before it earns acceptance. There is no rush to impress, just steady belief carried forward step by step. That honesty gives the film its lasting strength. Number 6. Malta Story, 1953. Malta Story blends personal drama with historical urgency, grounding its story in the daily strain faced by an entire island. Set during the Siege of Malta, the film follows an air reconnaissance officer navigating constant pressure as resources thin and danger feels routine. Alec Guinness delivers a subtle, controlled performance that never reaches for heroics. The strength of the film lies in its balance. A romantic thread develops, but it never overwhelms the larger situation. Civilians and service members share the same exhaustion. Shortages grow worse. Morale feels fragile, but not broken. Filmed on location, the authenticity is unmistakable. Real streets, harbors, and airfields give the film a lived-in texture. Nothing feels artificial. The island itself becomes a character shaped by endurance. Guinness plays his role with restraint. His character observes, adapts, and accepts responsibility without speeches or bravado. Leadership is shown as quiet consistency rather than dominance. Malta Story still hits hard because it shows how entire communities carry pressure together. Endurance here is not dramatic. It is daily, repetitive, and necessary. That grounded honesty is why the film still resonates decades later. Number 5. Angels 1-5, 1952. Chakuddu. Angels 1-5 wastes no time explaining itself. It simply puts you inside the pressure chamber of the Battle of Britain and lets the tension do the talking. The film follows a young pilot on his first posting, and from the opening scenes, it is clear that confidence will not come easily. The story moves between the air and the operations room, showing how every decision ripples outward. Scrambled orders, shifting markers on maps, tired voices calling out updates. It all feels procedural, almost documentary-like. That is not an accident. The Royal Air Force supported the production and allowed filming at active bases. What makes Angels 1-5 stand out is its refusal to glamorize flight. Planes break, landings go wrong, pilots make mistakes. Jack Hawkins brings authority without warmth, portraying leadership as responsibility rather than charisma. The aerial sequences are impressive, but they never overshadow the human cost. You see fear, frustration, and relief in quick flashes. There is no swelling music telling you how to feel. This film still hits hard because it shows how systems hold together under stress. Victory here is not personal. It is collective, and that grounded realism makes it one of the most honest air war films ever made. Number 4. The Wooden Horse, 1950. This film turns patience into suspense. The Wooden Horse tells the story of an escape plan so slow and methodical that it almost feels impossible. British prisoners decide to dig a tunnel, but instead of hiding it underground, they hide it in plain sight. The hollow vaulting horse becomes the centerpiece of the plan. Every day, it is carried out for exercise. Every day, someone climbs inside to dig. The rhythm is precise. One wrong move ends everything. What makes the film remarkable is its focus on routine. Days blur together. Progress is measured in inches. The guards are not foolish. They are observant, which makes every small success feel enormous. The performances are restrained, almost understated. Fear shows itself through hesitation rather than panic. Director Jack Lee keeps the camera close, emphasizing cramped spaces and quiet risk. The Wooden Horse still works because it understands tension as accumulation. There are no shortcuts, no last-minute rescues, just discipline and nerve. It proves that intelligence and teamwork can be as gripping as any large-scale set piece. Number 3. Dunkirk, 1958. Before later reinterpretations, this was the film that defined Dunkirk for British audiences. It tells two stories at once. One follows soldiers trying to reach the beach. The other follows civilians responding to the call to help. John Mills leads the ground story, portraying exhaustion without melodrama. Bernard Lee plays a journalist who becomes part of the civilian response. The film constantly shifts perspective, reminding you that this event was larger than any single experience. What stands out is the scale achieved without excess. Crowds feel real. Confusion feels genuine. The evacuation is shown as messy, uncertain, and driven by necessity rather than planning. The civilian boats are not heroic symbols. They are fragile and imperfect. That vulnerability adds weight to every crossing. Dunkirk still hits hard because it captures a moment defined by improvisation. It shows how ordinary people stepped into extraordinary circumstances without knowing how it would end. That humility is what gives the film its lasting strength. Number 2. Ice Cold in Alex, 1958. Ice Cold in Alex is a journey film disguised as a war story. A small group must cross the North African desert in a battered ambulance, with nothing but determination and a shared goal to keep them moving. John Mills gives one of his most human performances as a weary officer holding his group together through exhaustion and doubt. The desert is relentless. Heat, breakdowns, and suspicion grind everyone down. The film builds tension through survival rather than conflict. Every mile feels earned. Every delay feels dangerous. The famous promise of a cold drink at the end becomes more than a reward. It becomes hope. Director J. Lee Thompson lets the environment dominate the frame. The emptiness is overwhelming. You feel how small the group is against it. Ice Cold in Alex still resonates because it is about endurance. Not bravery for show, but perseverance when quitting would be easier. It understands that morale can be as important as supplies. Number 1. The Cruel Sea, 1953. At the top of this list sits a film that refuses sentimentality. The Cruel Sea follows a Royal Navy escort crew through the Battle of the Atlantic, focusing on duty, fatigue, and impossible decisions. Jack Hawkins delivers a commanding performance as a man shaped by responsibility. His voiceover sets the tone, calm, reflective, and heavy with experience. The sea itself becomes a constant presence, unforgiving and indifferent. What makes the film unforgettable is its moral weight. One key moment forces a choice that no one should have to make. The film does not soften it. It lets the consequences linger. Real ships, real tactics, and real veterans give the story unmatched authenticity. Nothing feels staged. Everything feels necessary. The Cruel Sea still hits hard because it respects the audience. It does not explain its message. It shows it. And decades later, its honesty remains devastatingly effective. So maybe the question is not why these films still work. Maybe the question is why we stopped making them this way. These 1950s British war dramas trusted silence, trusted patience, and trusted you. If one of these films stayed with you, say which one and why. Share this with someone who thinks old movies feel slow. And if history still matters on screen, you already know what to do next.